Hey, it's Janae here to brighten and lighten and ignite your day. Welcome to our crash course series on dealing with difficult people and conflict. Excited to share this with you. Please have in front of you the participant guide printed out so that we can go through this together. It'll be divided into different sections. So for ease of use that you can go in order or refer back to certain sections that might be helpful for you as well. Okay, so if you have your guide, go ahead and turn to this first page where we have the desired outcomes and agenda. So basically just want to help you understand the agenda. You know, there's a problem, right? We have difficult people no matter where we go. So we're going to be talking about difficult people at work, at home, and anywhere in between. So the problem is there's difficult people, there's conflicts, we get hostile work environments. The solution is how do we deal with the difficult people? How do we resolve the conflict so that we can have more harmonious work environments? So let's go ahead and start on page 2. In your guide is to look at the difficult people assessment. Okay, so you know, what is a difficult person? And what I want you to do is I'm going to talk through this with you for a minute, and then I want you to go ahead and pause it to do your own self-assessment. So a difficult person could be anybody whose behavior causes difficulties for you and others. So I want you to check all that apply, anywhere from they're the kind of people that make us lose our cool or, you know, help us lose morale. Whatever it is, because what's difficult for me and somebody could be totally different for what's difficult for you. So I want you to check which ones apply, and then also do a little assessment on what makes you a difficult person. So one thing my husband John and I noticed is in our home, we definitely have a lot of conflict and difficult environments coming up. And one thing that's relevant is the ways that my boys respond tend to be, that are more challenging, tend to be things that are mirrored in us. So sometimes we see what we don't like about ourselves in others, and that makes it difficult. So take a minute now to pause the recording so that you can do this assessment. All right, hope that was helpful for you to keep in mind. We are going to move then on to page 2 and look at the different groups, or excuse me, page 3. Let's look at the different groups of difficult people. I'm going to do a quick screen share here so that we can look at these different groups. You'll notice that there's bosses. Let me get here 1 second to the right. Slide. Sorry about that. We'll just take it one step up here. All right, groups of difficult people. Here we go. So we're going to look at the perspective of bosses, clients, coworkers, subordinates, and others. Each of these categories, what I'd like you to do is to take a moment. Again, I'm going to have you pause and think through, you know, what makes it difficult to work with bosses you've had now or in the past. Same with clients, coworkers, subordinates, and others then could be vendors. And then I'd encourage you to think about too, even at the home. You know, what makes it difficult with home? And this is important again, because what are some of the causes? We want to get to the root cause. So take a moment and pause and fill that out. Hope that was helpful for you as you look at these different groupings, because for all of us, especially right now, what led you to this program, you might be challenged in one of these areas. So since I'm kind of my own boss, I have clients that are awesome. I don't have really any coworkers and subordinates reporting to me, but I have 3 boys who can be challenging. So for me right now, this other category would fit in. But for you, maybe it is that really difficult boss situation. So I really want you to pinpoint which it is and what do you think are some of the causes of that, and then we'll go deeper into looking at that particular group. Let's move on to page 4 with the types of difficult personalities. Okay, so we're gonna have some fun with this. There's 4 different kinds of personalities and different names and groups that we're going to call these. How we're gonna do this section is I'm gonna ask you first to pause, because the more that you can get involved and filling in the information, the more you're really going to learn this. And I want you to go through and fill in the blanks. So we're in the first category in this table, upper left hand, where it says power players. So pause the video and fill in the blank. Which power player do you think goes with which? Let's see if you are correct in your answers. All right, the first one, the tyrants, are ones who use fear and even lies to control others. So tyrants really come across as those kind of people that want to rule in a fear-based organization. Now, I worked for an organization that was very, it was a wonderful organization, but I didn't realize that the CEO at the time really used fear-based approaches. So I was new to the department, and I was helping to roll out a new leadership development program. And we were inviting all the leaders in the company, including the upper level leaders, to attend. So I had this nice invitation, and I sent it out to all the leaders, including the CEO. Well, little did I know that my boss pulled me in within minutes, seriously, of it, for her to tell me that there was no way I was supposed to send communication to the CEO. And then also the issue was that I found out that he was more of this fear-based ruler, a tyrant, and I had no idea. So she was concerned about that, and sure enough, within the next day, she through the CEO contacted her, and she was reprimanded for that as well. So some choose to use that, and then how do you deal with that type of power player is we'll be coming up with those. But first we want to name that difficult personality. The next ones are those bullies. Bullies get in the way through pushiness or intimidation. Now, there's actually organizations and a ton of books out there on bullying in the organization. So if you feel like this is something you're struggling with, I definitely encourage you to look into that further. You'll notice below I list some resources around that, so go ahead and check those out to be helpful. Then you have those credit stealers who want to take credit for your work or other people's work. And I know how frustrating that can be. And of course, sometimes, if it's your boss, they need to take credit for the overall organization. But there are others that just want to take credit for the things that are good. Egotisticals are those narcissists who only understand their needs and make sure everything revolves around them. And this type of power player can be challenging because no matter what you do, it's always all about them. And then you have your challengers. They compete with everybody and everything, turning every situation into a contest and want to make themselves feel better. So these will be the challengers who like to challenge you and maybe your authority. So this is a big one going on in our home right now. I'd say our oldest and youngest are definitely challengers, wanting to challenge authority, compete, trying to be the best at things. And that kind of player can be a difficult personality to deal with. Now, these are the power players. What's important to understand about these players is that they know they're difficult. They make it obvious. Okay, unlike the next group, where are more indirect aggressors. Okay, so what I'd like you to do here, again, pause the video, fill in the blanks, and let's see how you did. All right, let's look at these 5 indirect aggressors. The first one are those button pushers. Don't you just love those who just like to push your buttons? Whether they're employees or at home, people definitely figure out what are your trigger points and like to push, push, push. And then we have the put down artists. Wow, they like to give out those zingers and zaps to criticize and complain. And man, this is tough because, some people are definitely more sensitive to words. And when people are putting down those words, it can really zing and be very difficult. Then you have the sabotagers who like to undermine you and go to great lengths of doing it. So you never quite know when you might be sabotaged, so you have to be on the lookout. And what's challenging is they could be those undercover operators, the ones who have a hidden agenda that would mess up your relationship, even though you're not really sure why. Like, what's the hidden agenda? What's out there? What is it that is bothering you so much that you're, acting this way? And then another indirect aggressors are those martyrs. They're always the victim. They have the self-pity. They're sorry, but it's their fault, but yet it's the pity part of it. So these are more indirect, difficult personalities to deal with. And then we have this next grouping where sometimes I don't think we would necessarily think of these as difficult personalities, but they can really, wreak havoc on the workplace or your home life. The first one in here is, first again, pause it, see how you do, and then we'll come back and debrief. All right, let's look at the 5 underachievers. We have the first one are those coasters. They like to have a free ride and do as little as possible. I mean, I don't know, this one really frustrates me. It's like, let's just do our work and do it wholeheartedly and not just get by with the minimum. Then you have a lifer, usually an older person who's just waiting to retire. I use this story often in some of my different trainings, but when I first met a coworker of my husband's, she was like 7 years, 18 months, 10 days, and 5 hours. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She goes, that's how much I've left here at Graco before I retire. And I was like, oh, okay, you have for sure planned things out. So it was interesting to meet a lifer sometimes who's just trying to put in the time, and that can be really challenging. Or you have those wise guys who are too smart for their own good and like to kind of test the rules. So I was teaching a class and someone was saying this is a challenge that they're having with the millennial generation coming into the workplace because they've been touted as always being successful in what they do, and coming into workplaces really trying to, think that they know best and not wanting to maybe necessarily listen to their elders. And then we have the gossips who are more concerned with encouraging discontent and trust in the rumor mill. This was something I had a small team that I worked with, and I had to figure out ways, because they like to go out to lunch and gossip. So I had to figure out different ways to deal with this personality, which I'll talk about in the future. And then we have the pass the buckers. The problems are never their fault. Okay, so unlike the martyrs who are always saying, oh yeah, me, self-pity, the pass the buckers just don't even acknowledge that it's their fault or that they have anything to do with it. We have one more bucket of difficult personalities. Let's check those out. These are the others. Okay, so these others are the kind of type of difficult personality that kind of fall into another bucket. All right, so let's look at the first one. Are the, oh, wait. Push that pause button and then I'll tell you the answers. Okay, let's get back to the first one is the temperamentals, the moody type. You just never know, right, which personality is going to show up. And then you have a perfectionist that are also equally difficult because they tend to, always focusing on getting things right and maybe not making decisions or moving ahead because they get so stuck in that level of perfectionism. Or we have the control freaks. Oh, these are tough, aren't they? They just always want to get their hand in whatever you are doing as well as what they're doing and everybody else is doing. The bulldozers, they like to push their way through you and anybody else. I would say they kind of move into that power player position, but just really insensitive and abrasive and, don't really think through of how and what they say and how it could impact others. Then you have your yes men who, will say yes, give you that sincere praise, and then yet kind of turn it around and could use it against you or just use it to get what they want done then, okay? So what I'd like you to do now is we've gone through these different buckets and you're thinking about the difficult personality. They could take on a few of these traits. So I want you to go ahead and star which ones do you feel really fit to that difficult personality that you are dealing with, okay? Now we finished this first section of looking at difficult people in our problem part of the agenda. We're going to move on to conflict and define kind of conflict and how that plays into the situation as well. So we'll be right back.